Nicole was at her husband's company party when she heard him say, loudly and in front of everyone, that he'd rather kiss the waitress than her, his own wife. At that moment, something exploded inside Nicole. Rage took over. Because in the previous weeks, she had uncovered secrets he'd been hiding, dirty secrets. And she had proof. What Nicole did after this humiliation completely destroyed his impeccable reputation. Because there are limits that when a man crosses, he deserves to pay, and pay dearly. Nicole was 38 years old and had a life many people envied. A beautiful home, financial stability, and a successful husband. Kevin was a sales director at a large company, earning a good salary and being respected by everyone. On the surface, they seemed like the perfect couple. But the truth is, Nicole had been noticing changes in Kevin's behavior for months. Little things that, on their own, seemed trivial. But together, they formed a pattern she could no longer ignore. Kevin started making comments about her appearance. Nothing too aggressive at first, just little jokes about her outfit choices, her weight, her age. He'd laugh it off later, as if it were a joke. But Nicole felt the sting, every time. Then she noticed how he looked at other women. It wasn't a quick, discreet glance. It was intense. He noticed younger women in restaurants, in stores, at the gym. And he made a point of commenting, always complimenting others, always comparing. Nicole tried to talk to him a few times. Kevin denied everything, saying she was overreacting, that she was being insecure. He turned the tables so well that Nicole began to doubt herself. Was she going crazy? Was she seeing things where nothing existed? But then, Kevin announced there would be a company party. A big celebration for the half-year's positive end. All the executives, clients, and investors would be there. And Nicole had no idea that that night would change everything. Before we continue Nicole's story, tell me, which city and country are you watching from? Leave a comment. Nicole woke up that Tuesday morning as she did every day. She made coffee, tidied the house, and looked out the kitchen window. Her life seemed good. Not perfect, but good. She had a comfortable home in a quiet neighborhood, financial stability, and a husband many admired. Kevin worked as a sales director at a technology company. He earned a good living. He wore expensive suits, drove a foreign car, and was always surrounded by people who respected him. At work, he was seen as a leader. At home, he was the man Nicole had chosen to spend her life with. They'd been together for 12 years. 12 years of history, memories, and building. Nicole always believed she'd made the right choice. Kevin was ambitious, determined, and knew what he wanted. She admired that about him. Or at least she did at first. But over the past 6 months, Nicole began to notice changes, little things that, on their own, meant nothing. But when she added them all together, they formed a picture that deeply disturbed her. It all started with the comments. Kevin was always direct, always spoke his mind. Nicole liked that. But recently, he started making remarks about her appearance, comments that were disguised as jokes, but they hurt. "That dress would look better if you lost a few pounds," he once said, laughing shortly afterward, as if it were an innocent joke. "Your hair is getting gray. Don't you want to dye it?" he commented the other day, over breakfast. "Women your age need to take better care of themselves. Otherwise, gravity will win," he blurted out one afternoon while they were watching television together. Nicole tried to laugh along. She tried to believe they were just harmless jokes, but each comment left a mark. Each sentence made her look at herself in the mirror with more criticism, with more insecurity. Then came the second change, the way Kevin looked at other women. Nicole first noticed it at the gym. They'd gone to work out together, something they often did on Saturdays. There was a woman on the treadmill next to them, wearing a tight fitness top and leggings. Kevin hadn't taken his eyes off her throughout the workout. It wasn't a quick, discreet glance. It was an intense, lingering look. He watched her every move, adjusted the position of his device for a better view, and even smiled when she passed by to grab a towel. Nicole felt a tightness in her chest. She was there, beside him, but it was as if she were invisible. When they left the gym that morning, Nicole decided to talk about it. "Kevin, I noticed you were looking at that woman on the treadmill a lot." He turned to her with an expression of surprise, almost indignation. "What?" "Nicole, you're exaggerating. I was just looking ahead while I was training." "Looking straight ahead? You turned your neck several times to look at her." Kevin laughed. A short laugh, as if her accusation were ridiculous. "You're getting paranoid. I barely noticed the woman. Seriously, Nicole, this is all in your head." She was silent. Was he right? Was she seeing things where there were none? Was she being too insecure? But then it happened again, and again, and again. At the supermarket, Kevin would stop to chat with the cashier, making jokes and complimenting her lipstick. In the mall parking lot, he held the door for a blonde woman and chatted with her for 5 minutes while Nicole waited in the car. At friends' parties, he spent more time complimenting other women than paying attention to his own wife. And whenever Nicole mentioned something, he denied it. He said she was overreacting, that she was being insecure, that she was creating problems where none existed. Kevin was so convincing in his denials that Nicole began to doubt herself. Maybe she really was seeing too much. Maybe it was just her age, the natural insecurity of a 38-year-old woman married to a successful man. But there was something inside her, a small but insistent voice that said, "This isn't right. Something is wrong." Nicole started paying more attention, not obsessively, but attentively. She noted the times Kevin arrived home. She noticed the messages he received on his cell phone. She noticed when he left the room to answer calls. And the more she paid attention, the more strange things she saw. Kevin started coming home late more often. He always had an excuse: a meeting that ran long, a client who needed attention, a last-minute issue. His excuses were always plausible, always logical. But Nicole felt there was something more. She didn't know what to do with this feeling yet. She didn't know if she should confront Kevin again, if she should investigate further, or if she should simply accept that maybe she was overreacting, as he said. But Nicole was sure of one thing: that discomfort that had started small was growing, and she could no longer ignore it. Have you ever noticed changes in someone close to you's behavior but were afraid to confront them? Tell us in the comments. And if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel using the subscribe button or the QR code that appears on your screen, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any exciting stories like this. Nicole's discomfort only grew. With each passing day, it became harder to ignore the signs. That feeling that something was wrong settled in her chest and wouldn't leave. Kevin continued to comment on her appearance. But now he had started something worse. He compared Nicole to other women, always making it clear that the others were better. On Sunday afternoon, they were watching a movie at home. A young actress appeared on the screen, wearing an elegant dress. "Now that's a beautiful woman," Kevin said, pointing at the television. "See how well she takes care of herself. See how well she dresses." Nicole felt the sting. She looked at Kevin, hoping he would realize how much it hurt. But he continued staring at the screen as if she'd said the most natural thing in the world. Days later, they were at the mall. A young woman walked past them wearing tight jeans and a low-cut top. Kevin turned his head completely to look. "These girls today know how to value themselves," he commented, loud enough for Nicole to hear. "It's not like it used to be." In the past, as if Nicole were a relic of the past, as if her 38 years were a sentence of ugliness, but the worst was yet to come. One Friday night, they went to a networking event for Kevin's company. It was at a fancy downtown hotel, with live music, drinks, and lots of important people. Kevin loved these events. He felt powerful at them. Nicole wore a black dress she had bought especially for the occasion. She had dressed up meticulously, done her nails and hair. She wanted to look beautiful next to her husband. When they arrived at the event, Kevin greeted several people. He introduced Nicole to some colleagues, but soon left to talk to company executives. Nicole stood near the bar, watching. And that's when she saw it. Across the room, Kevin was talking to a woman. She must have been about 26 or 27, blonde, tall, and wearing a flashy red dress. She was one of the assistants to one of the directors. Kevin was standing too close to her, leaning in, laughing, gesturing. He touched her arm twice as he spoke. She laughed, tossed her hair back, and seemed comfortable with the proximity. Nicole felt her stomach churn. She looked around, wanting to see if anyone else was noticing. But people continued their conversations, drinking, laughing, networking. She stood there for about 10 minutes, just watching. Kevin didn't look in her direction once. He was completely focused on the blonde in the red dress. When they finally returned home that night, Nicole couldn't take it anymore. "Kevin, you spent a lot of time talking to that blonde woman today." He was taking off his tie. He didn't even turn to look at her. "What blonde woman?" "The principal's assistant. You spent about 20 minutes talking to her." Kevin shrugged. "I talked to several people today. Nicole, it's a work event. That's what you do. You didn't talk to many people. You spent most of your time with her, and you were very close." Now he turned around, an irritated expression on his face. "Nearby? Nicole? I was talking at a noisy event. You need to be close to hear. You're seeing problems where there aren't any." "I don't see a problem. I'm just saying what I've observed." Kevin let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Do you know what your problem is? You're becoming insecure. And do you know why? Because you don't take care of yourself? You don't value yourself. Then when you see a beautiful, well-groomed woman, you get jealous." The words landed like a punch to Nicole's stomach. "How can you say that to me?" "I'm telling the truth. If you're so bothered by other women, maybe you should look at yourself first. See what you can improve." Nicole felt the tears start to well up, but she held them back. She wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of seeing her cry. "I dress up. I take care of myself." Not enough, apparently. He left the room, leaving Nicole alone with those poisoned words. In the following weeks, the situation only got worse. At an Italian restaurant, Kevin openly flirted with the sommelier who recommended the wine. He complimented her knowledge, said she had refined taste, and asked if she offered private lessons. All while Nicole sat across from him. At a dinner party at a friend's house, he spent the entire evening chatting with the host's sister-in-law, a 30-year-old dentist. He asked her questions about her work, laughed out loud at her jokes, and offered to help her find a better commercial property. And whenever Nicole mentioned something, Kevin would turn the tables. He'd say she was paranoid, insecure, jealous, that she was creating problems where none existed. He was so convincing that Nicole began to question her own sanity. Was she really exaggerating? Was she seeing betrayal where there was only politeness? But then came the final blow. One Thursday night, Kevin came home more excited than Nicole had seen him in months. He walked into the living room with a huge smile, tossed his briefcase on the couch, and announced, "The company closed the semester in the red. We hit all our targets. We're going to have a huge party to celebrate." Nicole forced a smile. "That's cool. When will it be?" "In 3 weeks. It'll be at a super fancy club. All the executives, directors, most important clients, and investors will be there. It's a huge event." He continued talking excitedly about how important it would be to be at this party, about the opportunities to network, to impress the right people. Nicole listened in silence. And inside, that voice that had been growing louder over the past few months became impossible to ignore. She could no longer accept his denials. She could no longer doubt herself. Nicole needed to know the truth, and she was going to find out. Nicole woke up the following Friday with a firm decision. She would no longer accept Kevin's denials. She would no longer doubt what she saw. If he was hiding something, she would find out. But she had to be careful. She couldn't let Kevin know she was investigating, because if he did, he'd erase all the evidence and continue denying everything. So Nicole started slowly, observing, paying attention to details she'd previously overlooked. She noticed that Kevin had started carrying his cell phone everywhere. He even took it to the bathroom. Before, he'd leave it on the living room table, the kitchen counter, anywhere. But now, it was always in his pocket or in his hand. Nicole also noticed that he would quickly turn off the screen whenever she came near, as if he were hiding something. And when the phone rang and she was nearby, he didn't answer. He said he'd call back later. One day, Kevin was in the shower and left his cell phone on the bed. Nicole looked at it. Her heart began to beat faster. She knew hacking his phone was wrong, but she needed to know the truth. With shaking hands, she picked up the phone. She tried to unlock it using the password she knew. It didn't work. Kevin had changed the password. This only increased Nicole's suspicions. Why would he change his phone password? What was he hiding? Over the next few days, she continued observing, and she noticed a clear pattern. Kevin would come home late at least 3 times a week, always with excuses: a meeting that ran long, a client who needed attention, an urgent issue that arose. The excuses always made sense. But Nicole started writing down the days and times and realized they didn't add up. One Tuesday, he said he had a meeting until 9 o'clock, but Nicole called the office at 8:30, pretending to need to talk to him about a problem at home. The receptionist said Kevin had left at 6, 3 hours difference. Where was he during those 3 hours? Nicole didn't confront him. She kept the information to herself. Then came the opportunity she had been waiting for. One Thursday night, Kevin took a shower and went to bed early, saying he was tired. He left his phone charging on the nightstand and slept soundly. Nicole waited half an hour. She checked to see if he was actually asleep. Then, very carefully, she picked up his cell phone. She tried several password combinations, his birthday, their wedding date. Nothing worked, so she tried something different. She placed Kevin's sleeping finger on the fingerprint sensor. The cell phone unlocked. Nicole felt her heart race. She went to the bathroom, locked the door, and began to investigate. First, she opened the messaging app. There were several normal conversations: co-workers, friends, soccer groups, nothing special. But then she noticed something strange. Some conversations had been deleted. She could see the contact's name, but when she opened them, there was no history. As if Kevin had purposely deleted the messages. Nicole felt butterflies in her stomach. Why would he delete messages if he had nothing to hide? She kept searching. She went to the photo app, scrolled through the gallery. Normal photos. Him at work, lunches with clients, company events. Then she saw a folder called Files. She clicked it, and there they were. Photos he'd received from other women. Sensual selfies, provocative poses, beautiful young women in underwear or tight clothing. Nicole felt her stomach churn. There were at least 15 different photos of different women, but the worst was yet to come. She opened her email app, she went to her sent folder, and began reading. There were messages to a woman named Stephanie. Kevin complimented her body, said he couldn't stop thinking about her, and wanted to see her again. He arranged meetings at hotels. There were messages to another woman, Melanie. He said she was beautiful, that she had an incredible smile, and that he loved spending time with her. There were messages for 3 other women, all young, all receiving the same kind of attention from him. Kevin wasn't just looking at other women. He was cheating on Nicole, multiple times, with several different women. Tears began to stream down Nicole's face. She covered her mouth to keep from making noise and waking Kevin. How could he do this? How could he look into her eyes every day, sleep in the same bed, live in the same house, and betray her like this? Nicole took a deep breath. She wiped away her tears. She couldn't break down now. With her hands shaking, she began taking pictures of everything: conversations, photos, emails. She emailed everything to herself so she could have a copy. It took her almost 40 minutes to document everything. When she was finished, she deleted his email sending history so he wouldn't notice. She put her phone back on the nightstand, exactly where it was. He went back to the bathroom. He looked in the mirror. His eyes were red, his face pale. She had just discovered that the man she'd been married to for 12 years was a liar, a cheater, someone who used charm and power to manipulate younger women. Nicole felt a mixture of pain and anger. The pain of knowing she'd been deceived for so long. The anger of being treated like an idiot. But along with the pain and anger came something else, a cold, calculated determination. Kevin thought he was smart. He thought he could do whatever he wanted without consequences. He was wrong, and Nicole was going to prove it. Nicole didn't sleep that night. She lay next to Kevin, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything she'd discovered. The photos, the messages, the hotel encounters. When the sun rose, she knew what she had to do. She couldn't stop there. She needed to know more. She needed to understand the extent of the betrayal, because it was one thing to find out he was cheating. It was another thing to find out how long it had been going on. Over the next few days, whenever Kevin left for work, Nicole continued to investigate. She rummaged through his closets. She looked in his drawers. He looked in places he'd never looked before. And she found things that shocked her. At the back of her office closet, hidden beneath old folders, she found credit card statements Kevin had hidden from her. They were for a card she hadn't even known existed. Nicole sat in her office chair and began reading her statements. Her hands trembled as she reviewed the expenses. Hotels, lots of hotels. The same pattern repeated itself. He spent money on hotels midweek, always late in the afternoon, sometimes twice a week. And they weren't cheap hotels. They were luxury hotels with expensive daily rates. Nicole grabbed the calendar and started crossing off the dates. She checked how many times Kevin had said he had a late meeting or dinner with a client. It matched perfectly with the hotel expenses. He wasn't working late. He was in hotels with other women. But that wasn't all. There was also spending on jewelry, expensive gifts, necklaces, bracelets, earrings. Nicole looked at the piece of jewelry she wore around her neck. It was a simple necklace Kevin had given her for her last birthday. It cost $100. The necklaces he bought for his lovers cost $1,000, $2,000. Nicole felt anger rising inside her. He was spending their money on expensive gifts for other women, while she, his wife, was left with nothing but crumbs. She continued looking at the statements and noticed something even worse. The dates of the expenses went back a long way, very far. It wasn't just from the last few months. There were suspicious expenses from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, even 5 years ago. Kevin had been cheating on her for years, maybe since the beginning of their marriage. Nicole felt the ground drop out from under her feet. 12 years of marriage, and probably half that time, or more, he was cheating on her. She put the statements back where she'd found them. She needed him to think nothing had changed, that she knew nothing. But Nicole wasn't done yet. She went back to his phone. This time, she dug deeper. She checked apps he rarely used. She looked at old conversations he hadn't completely deleted, and found a disturbing pattern. Kevin had a method, a way of acting that he repeated with every woman. First, he chose younger women, always between 23 and 30, women who worked in lower positions than him or who were just starting out in their careers. So he turned on his charm. He complimented them, made them feel special. He told them they were different, that they were mature for their age, that he'd never met anyone like them. Then he offered help. He said he could introduce them to important people, that he could help their careers, that he had connections, influence. And when they fell for his charm, when they began to trust him, he moved in. He set up dates. He took them to hotels. He made promises. And when he got tired of them, he simply disappeared. He stopped responding to messages. He made excuses. He said his wife was suspicious, that he needed to be careful. He used Nicole as an excuse to break up with his lovers. Nicole read conversations with at least 7 different women, all young, all following the same pattern. There was Stephanie, who was working as an intern at a client of Kevin's company. He promised he'd help her get a better job. They dated for 3 months. Then he stopped responding to her messages. There was Melanie, a saleswoman at a clothing store Kevin frequented. He told her she was beautiful, that she had modeling potential. He took her to expensive dinners and luxury hotels. Then he disappeared. There were others, each with a similar story, each manipulated in the same way. Kevin wasn't just a cheater, he was a manipulator. Someone who used his power and influence to prey on younger, more vulnerable women. Nicole felt nauseous. How had she not noticed before? How had she spent years sleeping next to a man like that? But then came another, even worse, realization. She remembered the comments Kevin made about her age, about her body, about how she didn't take good care of herself. He was comparing her to young lovers and making Nicole feel inferior, making her doubt herself. Everything made sense now. Kevin wasn't just cheating on Nicole. He was destroying her self-esteem so he could continue doing what he wanted without being questioned. If she felt ugly, old, worthless, she wouldn't question him when he looked at other women. She wouldn't be suspicious when he arrived late. She would accept everything, afraid of losing him. It was a cruel psychological game, and Nicole had fallen for it. The tears came again, but this time they weren't just tears of pain, they were tears of anger, of pure hatred. She had wasted 12 years of her life on a man who didn't deserve even 5 minutes of her attention. Nicole wiped away her tears. She took a deep breath. She needed to think clearly now. She couldn't act on impulse. She couldn't confront Kevin yet. Because if she confronted him now, he'd deny everything. He'd say she was crazy, that she'd invaded his privacy, that she was overreacting. He'd turn the tables like he always did. No. Nicole needed a better plan. She needed to gather all the evidence she could. She needed to have irrefutable proof. She needed to prepare for what would come next. And then, when the moment was right, she would act. Nicole didn't yet know exactly how she was going to do this. But one thing she was sure of, Kevin was going to pay for everything he had done. Every betrayal, every lie, every moment he made her feel small. He was going to pay dearly. Nicole needed someone to talk to. Keeping that secret to herself was tearing her apart. Every night, she lay next to Kevin, pretending nothing had changed. She smiled when he came home. She asked about his day. She acted like the perfect wife. But inside, she was falling apart. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, Nicole called Laura. Laura had been her best friend since college. They'd been through everything together: graduations, first jobs, relationships, marriages. If there was anyone Nicole could trust, it was Laura. "I need to talk to you." "It's urgent," Nicole said into the phone, trying to keep her voice steady. Laura realized immediately that something was very wrong. "Come to my house. Now." 30 minutes later, Nicole was sitting in Laura's living room, a cup of tea in her hands. And then she told him everything. She talked about Kevin's comments, about his looks at other women, about how he made her feel insecure and paranoid every time she questioned something. He talked about the investigation, about the messages he found on his phone, about the hidden credit card statements, about the hotels, the expensive gifts, the numerous women. He talked about how Kevin manipulated younger women, how he used power and influence to get what he wanted, how he'd been leading a double life for years. When Nicole finished telling her story, she was crying. Laura was crying too. "That son of a bitch," Laura said, anger in her voice. "That damned son of a bitch." She hugged Nicole tightly. "You don't deserve this. No woman deserves this." Nicole wiped away her tears. "I don't know what to do, Laura. Part of me wants to confront him right now, throw everything in his face and leave the house. But the other part? The other side knows you need to be smart," Laura added. "Because if you confront him now, without a plan, he'll destroy you. He'll turn the tables. He'll say you're crazy, that you invaded his privacy. He'll make you look like the villain." Nicole nodded. That was exactly what she thought. "So what do I do?" Laura was silent for a moment, thinking, "You keep gathering evidence. Make copies of everything. Messages, photos, bank statements. Keep it all in a safe place, away from home, and when you have enough evidence he can't deny, then you act. But when? When is the right time?" Laura looked at Nicole with a determined expression. "You'll know when the time comes. There will come a moment when everything will fall into place, and at that moment, you'll be ready." Nicole felt something shift inside her. It wasn't just pain anymore. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was determination. "You're right. I need to prepare myself. I need to be ready." "And you won't do this alone," Laura said, taking Nicole's hand. "I'll help you with everything you need. Documents, a lawyer, a place to stay if you need it. Whatever you need, I'm here." Nicole hugged her friend again. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel alone. In the following days, Nicole began to execute the plan. She created a folder on an online storage service that Kevin couldn't access. She put all the evidence she'd gathered there: photos of his conversations, copies of his bank statements, screenshots of the compromising emails. But Nicole also started doing something else, something she hadn't expected. She started taking care of herself. Months ago, Nicole had stopped looking at herself in the mirror with affection. She only saw her flaws, the extra pounds, the wrinkles beginning to appear, her hair that no longer shined like it used to. Kevin had put these things in her head. He had made her believe she wasn't pretty enough, young enough, good enough. But now, Nicole saw everything differently. The problem was never her. The problem was always him. So she started taking care of herself. Not for Kevin, for herself. Nicole started going to the gym again. Not because she needed to lose weight, but because it was good for her. Because it made her stronger, physically and mentally. She made an appointment at the hairdresser. She got a new, modern haircut. She added highlights that brightened up her face. She went to the mall and bought new clothes, pieces that made her feel beautiful and confident. Vibrant colors she'd stopped wearing because Kevin always made negative comments. She even made an appointment with a beautician. She got her nails done and her skin taken care of. Small things they did, she feels good. And with each passing day, Nicole saw a different woman in the mirror, a stronger woman, more confident, more herself. The most interesting thing is that Kevin didn't notice anything. He was so focused on himself, so absorbed in his own plans and his own betrayals, that he didn't even notice his wife's transformation. When Nicole showed up with her new hair, he just said, "It looks different." When she wore a new dress to dinner, he barely glanced at her. When she mentioned that she was going to the gym every day, he just muttered an absent-minded, "Good." Kevin was completely blind. Blind to the changes in Nicole, blind to the fact that she had figured it all out, blind to the brewing storm. Because for the past few days, the only thing Kevin could talk about was the company party. He spent hours choosing the perfect suit. He bought new, expensive shoes. He made appointments at the barber 3 times in 1 week because he wanted to look impeccable. He talked nonstop about who would be at the party, which important clients, which investors, which executives from other companies. "This party is my chance to shine," he said one Thursday, as he tried on different ties in the mirror. "Everyone who matters will be there. I need to make a good impression." Nicole watched him from across the room, feigning interest. "I'm sure you'll impress everyone," she said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Kevin didn't even notice her tone. He was too busy admiring his own reflection in the mirror, and while he was preparing to shine, to be the center of attention, to show the world how successful and admirable he was, Nicole was preparing something else. She was preparing his end, because Laura was right. There would come a time when everything would fall into place, a perfect moment to act, and Nicole had a feeling that moment was coming. On Friday morning, Kevin woke up more cheerful than Nicole had seen him in months. He ate breakfast singing, something he rarely did. He was in a good mood, smiling, and full of energy. "I found out where the party's going to be," he announced as he put on his tie. "The Riverside Club." Nicole knew the place. It was one of the most upscale clubs in the city. It had river views, huge ballrooms, and opulent decor. It was the kind of place where the rich and powerful went to show off. "It looks fancy," Nicole said, sipping her coffee. "Fancy? It's more than fancy. It's the most exclusive place in town. The company spent a fortune renting the main hall. There'll be a full buffet, an open bar, and live music. It's going to be spectacular." Kevin was beaming. He continued talking as he finished getting ready. "Everyone important will be there. The company president, all the directors, the regional managers, and that's not all. Several major clients have confirmed their attendance. Investors too. People who can open doors for me." He adjusted his tie in the mirror, admiring his own reflection. This party is my chance to show what I'm capable of, to make contacts that will take my career to the next level. Nicole watched him speak. She saw the excitement in his eyes, the vanity, the arrogance. Kevin didn't see that party as a simple celebration. He saw it as a stage, a place to shine, to impress, to be admired. "You're really excited about this," Nicole commented. "Of course I am. It's the party of the year. Everyone will be there, and everyone will see that Kevin Thompson is someone important." He picked up his jacket and looked at Nicole. "You'll need to buy a new dress. Something elegant, sophisticated. After all, you'll be by my side. It needs to be up to par." Nicole felt the familiar pang. Even when he seemed to be praising her, Kevin always found a way to belittle her. "I'll take care of it," she said, keeping her tone neutral. Kevin left for work singing again. Nicole was left alone in the kitchen. She thought about everything Kevin had said, about how he saw this party as his chance to shine. And then the idea came. If Kevin wanted a stage, Nicole would give him one. But not in the way he expected. She picked up her cell phone and called Laura. "I found out where the party is going to be, at the Riverside Club." Laura whistled on the other end of the line. "Fancy place. There will be a lot of important people there, I imagine." "Exactly. Executives, directors, customers, investors, the company's elite will be there." There was a pause. Then Laura spoke slowly. "Nicole, are you thinking what I'm thinking?" "I am. It's the perfect time." Laura was silent for a few seconds. "Are you sure? Because once you do this, there's no going back." Nicole looked out the window. She thought about everything she had discovered in the last few weeks. The betrayals, the lies, the manipulation, the disrespect. "I'm sure. Does he want to shine at that party? Does he want to impress everyone? Then he will. Just not in the way he imagines." "Okay," Laura said, and Nicole could hear the smile in her friend's voice. "Then let's do this right. What do you need?" "I need a flash drive. I'll put all the evidence on it. Photos, messages, bank statements, everything." "Done. What else?" "I need to find out if the club has a projector, if it has a screen where presentations can be shown." "Let me call the club and find out. I'll pretend I'm planning a corporate event." "Perfect. And Laura? Try. Thank you. For everything. I don't know what I would do without you." "You don't have to do anything alone. We're in this together." They hung up. Nicole spent the rest of the day planning. She opened her laptop and began organizing all the evidence she had collected. He created a presentation. Simple, direct, devastating. The first image would be a photo of her and Kevin on their wedding day. Young, happy, in love. Or at least she was in love. Then the messages would come, one after the other. Conversations with Stephanie, with Melanie, with everyone else. Explicit messages, false promises, manipulations. Then came the bank statements, highlighting his hotel expenses, expensive gifts, and romantic dinners. Everything he hid from her. Then more photos, the selfies women sent him, the provocative poses, everything he saved on his phone. And finally, a simple text. "This is the man you admire. This is the leader you respect. This is Kevin Thompson." Nicole saved the presentation to the flash drive Laura had brought later. She looked at the small device in her hand. Here was the power to destroy Kevin, to expose every lie, every betrayal, every moment of deceit. But Nicole hesitated for a moment. Should I really do this? Wouldn't it be better to just file for divorce and move on? Then she remembered. She remembered all the times Kevin had made her feel ugly, old, worthless. How he denied everything, making her doubt her own sanity. He remembered the young women he manipulated, using power and influence to get what he wanted. And the 12 years wasted with a man who never respected her. No. She wasn't going to simply file for divorce and let Kevin continue to be admired and respected. She wasn't going to let him get away with this, free to do the same thing to another woman. Kevin was going to pay, and he was going to pay in front of everyone he so desperately wanted to impress. Nicole put the flash drive in her bag. She smiled, The party was just a few days away. Just a few days before Kevin would have the night of his life. Just not in the way he expected. It was 5 days before the party. Nicole went into full preparation mode. She spent the last few days reviewing every piece of evidence she'd collected. She checked for screenshots of all important conversations. She verified that bank statements were complete and legible. She organized the photos in chronological order. Nicole couldn't let anything slide. She couldn't give Kevin any room to deny or minimize what he'd done. One Tuesday afternoon, while Kevin was at work, Nicole did something she'd been putting off for weeks. She made an appointment with a lawyer. She chose an office on the other side of town, far from anywhere Kevin might frequent. She used her maiden name to schedule the appointment. The lawyer's name was Richard. He was a man in his 50s, with gray hair and a serious expression. He specialized in divorce. Nicole sat in front of him and told him everything. She left nothing out. The betrayals, the manipulation, the hidden expenses, the pattern of behavior with younger women. Richard listened silently, taking notes. "Do you have proof of any of this?" he asked when Nicole finished. "I have them. Screenshots of conversations, photos, bank statements, everything documented." "Great. That makes things much easier. With this evidence, you have a strong case. You'll get a favorable division of assets, possibly alimony if you want." Nicole shook her head. "I don't want alimony. I just want a divorce and my fair share of the assets we built together." "I understand. I'll prepare the documents. They'll be ready by the end of the week." Nicole thanked him and left the office. She felt strange. It was real now. In a few days, her 12-year marriage would end. But she didn't feel sadness. She felt relief. In the following days, Nicole continued to act normally at home. She cooked, cleaned, and talked to Kevin as if nothing had changed, and Kevin was still completely oblivious to everything. He was always talking about the party, what he was going to wear, who was going to be there, how he was going to enjoy every moment. "I bought a new suit," he announced Wednesday, showing off a bag from an expensive store. $1,500, but it's worth every penny. "I need to look impeccable." Nicole thought about the bank statements she'd seen, the thousands of dollars he'd spent on hotels and gifts for lovers, and now another $1,500 on a suit for a party. "It will be beautiful," she said, smiling. Kevin didn't even notice the sarcasm in her voice. On Thursday, Nicole went to Richard's office to pick up the divorce papers. He handed her a thick, sealed envelope. "Everything you need is here. Divorce petition, division of assets, everything. When it's ready, just hand it over to him for signature." Nicole tucked the envelope away in the back of her office drawer at home, the same place she'd found Kevin's hidden statements. The irony did not go unnoticed. On Friday, the day before the party, Nicole did the final review of the presentation. She had organized everything chronologically, starting with the oldest betrayals she could document, from 5 years ago, and going all the way to the most recent, from last week. Each slide showed a different conversation with a different woman. Then came the expenses, hotels, gifts, dinners, everything highlighted in red. The presentation lasted about 5 minutes. 5 minutes of irrefutable evidence. Nicole saved everything to the flash drive. She tested it 3 times to make sure it worked perfectly. It was ready. That night, Kevin ate dinner in a hurry. He was nervous about the party the next day. Nervous from excitement, not fear. "Tomorrow is going to be amazing," he said, sipping wine. "I'm finally going to get the recognition I deserve." Nicole looked at him across the table. "It's definitely going to be an unforgettable night," she said. Kevin smiled, not realizing the weight of her words. On Saturday morning, the day of the party, Kevin woke up early. He went to the gym, came back, and took a long shower. He shaved carefully. He put gel in his hair. He put on his new suit, his impeccable white shirt, his silk tie. He put on his expensive watch and Italian shoes. He stood in front of the mirror for at least 10 minutes, admiring himself. "I'm perfect," he said, turning from side to side. Nicole was finishing getting ready in the bathroom. She had chosen a navy blue dress, elegant yet understated. Her hair was styled in soft waves, and her makeup was light but flawless. When he left the bathroom, Kevin barely glanced at her. "Are you ready? We can't be late," he said, already grabbing his car keys. On the way to the club, Kevin drove, talking nonstop. About who would be at the party, what conversation he would strike up with each executive, how he would position himself to get noticed by the right people. Nicole listened in silence, her purse on her lap, with the flash drive inside. She was calm, calmer than she thought she would be, because she knew she had done everything right. She had all the evidence. She had the perfect timing. She had the plan. When they arrived at the Riverside Club, Nicole took a deep breath. The place was truly impressive. Bright lights, luxurious decor, music playing, expensive cars in the parking lot, well-dressed people entering the main hall. Kevin got out of the car excitedly, adjusting his tie once more. "Come on, it's time to shine," he said. Nicole got out of the car, straightened her dress, and grabbed her bag. "Yes," she said softly, "it's time to shine." They entered the club. The party was already underway. There must have been about 100 people there, executives, directors, clients, investors. Just as Kevin had said, the room was enormous, with a stage at the back where a band played. There was a full bar on one side, appetizer tables on the other, and in the center of the stage, a giant screen. Nicole looked at that big screen and smiled. Perfect. Kevin had already disappeared into the crowd, greeting people, making contacts, being the center of attention as he always wanted. Nicole grabbed a glass of champagne and waited. The right moment was coming. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that would change your life forever? Tell me in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. The party was lively. The music was loud. People were talking and laughing, and drinks were flowing non-stop. The room was packed with executives, directors, important clients, and investors. Exactly the kind of crowd Kevin loved. Nicole watched from afar, still holding her champagne flute. She saw Kevin moving among the groups, greeting people, making jokes, being the center of attention. Waitresses circulated around the room, serving drinks and canapés. They were young, beautiful, and dressed in uniform. They did their jobs professionally, smiling politely at the guests. Nicole noticed when Kevin started paying attention to one of them. She was a blonde waitress, maybe 24, with a beautiful smile and a friendly demeanor. She held a tray with champagne flutes and offered them to the guests. Kevin stopped her as she passed him. "Hey, can you get me another drink? Whiskey, on the rocks," he said, smiling in a way Nicole knew all too well. "Of course, sir. I'll be right back," the waitress replied politely. When she returned with the drink, Kevin thanked her profusely. He complimented her service and asked her name. "Madison," she replied, still smiling politely. "Madison, what a beautiful name." The waitress just nodded and continued walking around the room, doing her job. But Kevin couldn't stop staring at her. Every time Madison walked by, he found an excuse to get her attention. He'd order more drinks even when his glass was still full. He'd ask unnecessary questions about the canapés. Nicole saw everything and felt her anger grow. As the night wore on, Kevin drank more, and the more I drank, the more uninhibited I became. He was in a group of 5 colleagues, all directors or managers, when Madison walked by again. "Madison, come here," Kevin called, his voice already slurred from drinking so much. The waitress approached, professional. "Yes, sir." Kevin looked her up and down, shamelessly. Then he turned to his colleagues and said, loud enough for several people to hear, "Look at this wonderful woman here. Now that's a real woman." Her colleagues laughed awkwardly. Madison looked visibly uncomfortable, but maintained a professional smile. "Excuse me," she said, and walked quickly away. But Kevin wasn't finished. The band stopped playing for a few minutes, announcing a break. Some people started dancing to the ambient music playing on the stereo. Kevin, already visibly drunk, was dancing in the middle of a group of his classmates. He was moving exaggeratedly, laughing loudly, showing off. Nicole was a few feet away, watching. That's when it happened. Madison walked past Kevin's group, carrying an empty tray into the kitchen. Kevin grabbed her arm. "Hey, Madison, dance with me." "Excuse me, sir, I'm working," she said, trying to politely disengage. Kevin didn't let go. He pulled her close and began dancing around her, making exaggerated movements. The colleagues laughed, some embarrassed, others finding it funny. Then Kevin, completely full of himself and alcohol, said the sentence that Nicole would never forget. He looked at Madison, then looked to where Nicole was, pointed to his wife, and shouted to his colleagues, "You know what I would rather do? Kiss this waitress here than my wife there." He laughed out loud, as if he had made the funniest joke in the world. Some of her classmates laughed along, uncomfortable. Others fell silent, shocked. Madison finally managed to free herself and hurried off, clearly offended. Nicole heard everything, every word, every syllable. She felt humiliation burn in her chest. He felt the tears begin to fall. He wanted to run away and never come back. But then something changed. Pain turned to anger. Humiliation turned to determination. Nicole took a deep breath. She wiped her eyes and walked with firm steps toward the stage. There was a microphone there, used by the company president earlier to give a speech. Nicole picked up the microphone and tapped it twice, making a loud sound that caught everyone's attention. The music stopped. The conversation stopped. Everyone turned to look at her. Kevin also turned, surprised. He hadn't expected to see his wife on stage. Nicole smiled, a calm, controlled smile. "Good evening, everyone," she said into the microphone, her voice firm and clear. "Sorry to interrupt the party, but I'd like to make a toast." People started paying attention. Some picked up glasses, thinking it was a common toast. "I'd like to thank my husband, Kevin Thompson," Nicole continued, pointing to him in the crowd, "for 12 years of marriage, 12 years of companionship, 12 years of experiences." Kevin smiled, thinking it was a compliment. He waved to his colleagues proudly. "Kevin is an admirable man," Nicole said, her voice still calm. "Everyone here knows that. He's respected, successful, charming, a true leader." People started applauding. Kevin smiled even wider. "But I think you deserve to know the real Kevin Thompson. The Kevin I know." His smile began to fade. Nicole took the flash drive out of her bag. She walked over to the technician controlling the big screen and handed it to him. "Can you please put this on the screen?" The technician, confused, looked at the company president, who was in the front row. The president, equally confused, just shrugged. The technician plugged in the flash drive. The presentation began. The first image that appeared on the giant screen was Nicole and Kevin's wedding photo. Young, happy, smiling. People looked on, still not understanding. Then came the second image, a text conversation between Kevin and a woman named Stephanie, explicit, suggestive, compromising messages. A murmur began to spread through the hall. More images appeared, conversations with Melanie, with other women, sexy photos they had sent him. The murmur grew louder. Then came the bank statements, hotel expenses, expensive gifts, romantic dinners. Everything highlighted in red, impossible to ignore. People started talking amongst themselves, shocked. Kevin stood frozen in the middle of the room, his face white, his eyes wide. The presentation continued. More conversations, more evidence of years of betrayal. When it was over, Nicole returned to the microphone. "This is the man you admire," she said, her voice now thick with emotion. "This is the leader you respect. A man who cheats on his wife for years, who manipulates younger women, who uses power and influence to get what he wants, who spends the family's money on mistresses." The silence in the hall was total. "And you know what was the final straw?" Nicole continued. 2 minutes ago, he said in front of you that he'd rather kiss the waitress than his own wife, the woman who'd been by his side for 12 years, the woman who trusted him, the woman he promised to love and respect. Tears began to stream down Nicole's face, but she didn't stop. "So this is my toast. To the real Kevin Thompson, may you all know him for who he truly is. Nicole dropped the microphone on the floor with a loud thud. She grabbed her purse and left the room with her head held high. Behind her, there was silence, and Kevin, in the midst of 100 people, watched his reputation crumble to pieces. Nicole left the club without looking back. Her hands shook as she searched the parking lot for her car. She got in, started the engine, and drove to Laura's house. But inside the hall, chaos had begun. Kevin stood in the middle of the room for a few seconds, completely paralyzed. He stared at the screen, still showing the last image of the presentation. He looked around at the people, all of whom were staring at him with expressions of shock, disgust, and disbelief. Then he tried to speak. Wait, Kevin said, his voice shaking. This isn't what it looks like. She invaded my privacy. But no one was listening. The company president turned his back on him and left the room without saying a word. Several directors did the same. One of Kevin's colleagues, someone he considered a friend, came up to him and said quietly but firmly, "You're disgusting, Kevin, disgusting." And he walked away. Kevin looked around desperately. I was searching for some support, some friendly face, but I saw only revulsion. Then he realized something worse. Several people had their phones out, taking photos, some recording short videos. He knew what this meant. By Monday morning, everyone in the company would know what had happened. Customers would know. Suppliers would know. The entire corporate community in the city would be talking. No! Erase it! Kevin yelled, trying to cover his face. Erase it! But it was too late. Kevin ran out of the club, stumbling, his tie askew, his face flushed. He got into his car and drove aimlessly, trying to process what had just happened. How had Nicole found out? How had she gathered all that evidence? How had she had the courage to do that in front of everyone? He tried calling her. Once, twice, 10 times. All calls went to voicemail. Kevin spent the entire night awake, sitting on the living room couch, his phone in hand. He was receiving messages, some from colleagues at the party, asking if he was okay, but with a distant tone. Others from people they'd heard about through the company's WhatsApp groups. The story would spread quickly in the corporate environment. Not publicly, but in the worst way. Comments in private groups, conversations in the hallway, gossip at business lunches. Kevin knew how these things worked. Once someone's reputation is tarnished in this business, there's no going back. When the sun rose on Sunday, Kevin hadn't slept at all. He stared at his phone, at the messages that kept coming in. Then came the first call he had been dreading. He was the president of the company. "Kevin, you're off work immediately. We'll have a meeting with HR and legal on Monday morning. Don't show up at the office before then. We'll assess the situation." The call ended before Kevin could respond. Away. The word sounded like a sentence, but it didn't stop there. On Sunday, 3 important clients called, all with the same message, the only difference being the wording. "Kevin, we heard what happened yesterday. We're going to reevaluate our partnership. We don't want our name associated with this kind of behavior." One by one, the contracts Kevin had taken pride in managing began to fall apart. Friends started calling too, but they weren't supportive. "Kevin, my wife heard what happened. She doesn't want me to keep in touch with you. Sorry, man." "Man, what you did was really wrong. I think we should take a break." "Kevin, I don't know what to say. I thought I knew you." "You're deeply disappointing." One by one, his friends walked away. Kevin tried to justify himself in the few calls he managed to answer. He tried to explain. He tried to minimize. But the evidence Nicole had presented was too clear. The proof was too strong. There was no denying it, no lying. On Monday morning, Kevin received 2 visitors. The first was a representative from the company's HR department, accompanied by a lawyer. Thompson, after analyzing the situation and considering the damage to the company's image, "We inform you that your contract has been terminated for cause. Your personal belongings will be sent. Here are the documents." Kevin didn't even try to argue. He signed the papers with shaking hands. The second visit was a court officer, delivering other documents. Petition for divorce. Kevin opened the envelope. He read the documents, Nicole was asking for a divorce, half the assets, and was waiving any alimony. She wanted nothing from him beyond what she was entitled to. Her lawyer had enclosed all the evidence of the betrayal: bank statements showing hidden expenses, screenshots of conversations, photos, everything organized, documented, irrefutable. Kevin knew there was no way to fight this. Any judge who saw the evidence would rule in Nicole's favor. In the following days, Kevin's life continued to fall apart. The company lost 5 major contracts because of the scandal. Several executives made it clear they didn't want to work with someone with Kevin's tarnished reputation. The remaining friends completely distanced themselves. Invitations to barbecues, soccer games, and dinners all stopped coming. Even where he lived, Kevin began to feel the weight of stares. The neighbors had heard. Some looked away. Others made hushed comments as he passed. Kevin had lost everything: the job he'd spent years building, the contracts he managed with pride, the friends he thought he had, the reputation he valued so highly. And worst of all, he had lost Nicole, the only person who had truly stood by him, the only person who had given everything for him. And he had thrown it away. Why? Out of ego, out of arrogance, because he thought he could do whatever he wanted without consequences. Kevin sat on the empty couch in the empty house. He looked around. Nicole had taken her things: clothes, personal belongings, everything. She had left the house and never returned. The silence was heavy. Kevin picked up his cell phone again. He tried calling Nicole again. This time, the number didn't even ring. She had blocked him. He threw his phone on the couch and put his hands on his face. Reality had finally sunk in. He had destroyed his own life. And he had no one to blame but himself. Nicole had given him exactly what he deserved, and Kevin would have to live with the consequences of this for the rest of his life. 6 months after the party, Nicole woke up in a new apartment. It was smaller than the house she'd shared with Kevin, but it was hers, completely hers. She got up, made coffee, and went to the window. The view was beautiful. She could see the park, the trees, the people jogging in the morning. Nicole smiled. It was a new life, a life she had built with her own hands. The first few months after the divorce were difficult. Nicole wasn't going to lie about that. There were days when she cried, days when questioned if he had done the right thing, days when loneliness weighed heavily. But then she remembered. She remembered how small Kevin had made her feel, how he'd destroyed her self-esteem over the years, how he'd lied, cheated, manipulated. And then she knew. She had made the right choice. The divorce was finalized quickly. With all the evidence Nicole had gathered, Kevin's lawyer didn't even try to contest it. He signed the papers without argument. Nicole kept half of everything. The house was sold, the proceeds divided. She took her share and bought the new apartment, small but cozy, a place that was hers alone. But Nicole didn't stop there. She went back to work. She had stopped working 5 years ago when Kevin got the promotion to director and told her she didn't need it anymore. At the time, Nicole thought it was a gesture of care. Now she saw it was control, so she updated her resume. She sent it to several companies, and she landed a good job at a marketing firm. It wasn't a high-ranking position, but it was a start, and Nicole was determined to grow. For the past 6 months, she had dedicated herself completely to her work. She arrived early, left late, and learned everything she could. And people noticed. Her boss praised her work several times. She had already received a small promotion. Nicole was rebuilding not only her financial life, but also her self-esteem. She continued to take care of herself. She went to the gym 3 times a week. She got a haircut every month. She bought clothes she liked, not clothes Kevin would approve of. She went out with Laura and other friends. She went to the movies, to restaurants, to events. She lived. She really lived. And for the first time in years, Nicole looked in the mirror and liked what she saw. Not because I was thinner or younger, but because I saw a strong woman. A woman who had faced the worst betrayal and had come out with her head held high. As for Kevin, Nicole knew little about him. She had heard through mutual acquaintances that he had lost his job and couldn't find another at the same level, that he had sold his imported car, that he had moved to a small apartment on the other side of town. She also learned that he had tried to start his own business, but it hadn't worked out. He was doing freelance work, earning significantly less than he had before. His reputation in the corporate world was destroyed. No one wanted to hire someone with that history. No one wanted to do business with someone who had been publicly exposed like that. Nicole didn't feel sorry. She felt justice had been served. But more important than knowing about Kevin was knowing about herself. Nicole had learned things in the past few months. Important things. She learned that accepting disrespect isn't love. It's fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of starting over. She learned that a woman doesn't need to accept crumbs of attention. She doesn't need to accept being diminished, compared, or humiliated. Having the courage to take a stand isn't revenge. It's self-love. It's saying, I deserve more than this. And Nicole had realized something important along this journey. She wasn't a victim, never had been. She was a survivor. And now, she was a free woman. One Saturday afternoon, Nicole was running in the park. She had started running regularly. It was a way to clear her mind. She stopped for a drink of water when she saw a young couple sitting on a bench. The man was fiddling with his phone, laughing at something, while the woman next to him stared into space with a sad expression. Nicole saw the scene and recognized it. This was how she and Kevin were. He focused on himself. She was invisible. She almost went to the woman to say something, but she stopped. Each person needs to make their own journey, discover their own strength in their own time. Nicole kept running. When she got home, she showered and got ready. She had dinner with friends that night. They were going to celebrate Laura's promotion at work. Nicole put on a red dress she'd bought last week. She put on makeup, fixed her hair, and looked in the mirror. The woman looking back was different from the woman from 6 months ago. Stronger, more confident, more whole. Nicole smiled at her own reflection. She had spent 12 years of her life with a man who never valued her. 12 years believing that this was love. But now she knew love does not diminish, love does not humiliate, love does not betray. Love respects, love values, love builds. And Nicole had learned to love herself first, before anyone else. She grabbed her bag and left the apartment. The night was beautiful, the stars shining brightly in the sky. Nicole took a deep breath. Life was just beginning. And this time, she would live on her own terms, without settling for less than she deserved, without diminishing herself to fit into someone else's life. Because Nicole had learned the most important lesson of all. A woman who knows her worth doesn't accept disrespect. And when she decides to take a stand, nothing can stop her. And that was a lesson Nicole would carry with her forever. Nicole's story teaches us something powerful. That accepting disrespect is never love. That a woman doesn't need to diminish herself to fit into someone else's life. That recognizing her own worth is the first step to changing everything. Nicole could have stayed in that marriage. She could have believed Kevin's lies, his denials, his manipulations. She could have spent the rest of her life feeling small, ugly, worthless. But she chose differently. She chose to investigate. She chose to gather evidence. She chose to take a stand. And when Kevin crossed the final line, when he publicly humiliated her thinking he could do whatever he wanted without consequences, Nicole proved him wrong. She didn't have to yell. She didn't have to fight. She simply told him the truth, and the truth shattered the lies he had built. Today, Nicole lives the life she always deserved, a life of respect, dignity, and self-love. She didn't need Kevin to be happy. She just needed the courage to start over. The moral of this story is simple yet profound. No woman deserves to be disrespected. No woman should accept crumbs of attention. And when you know your worth, when you stand up for yourself with courage, you become unstoppable. If you're going through something similar, remember Nicole's story. You deserve respect, you deserve to be valued, and you have the strength to start over. Now tell me, what was the biggest lesson you learned from this story? Leave it in the comments. I want to read every single one. And if this story touched you in any way, like the video, subscribe to the channel using the subscribe button or the QR code that appears on your screen, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any more exciting stories like this.